Hi, welcome back. A lot of people watch our channel wanting to escape the UK's dull grey grimness, and so did we. But we picked America to move to without having really considered other places, including Australia. We recently spent 2 weeks there visiting Melbourne, Sydney and Tassie, and we have come to the realisation that Australia should have been a real consideration for us when we were considering leaving the UK.
In this video, we're going to give you the main reasons why we'd pick Australia over the USA to live in. First up is the major one, which is culture and lifestyle. And we mentioned this in our previous Australia videos, but the culture of the UK and Australia is very similar. It doesn't feel like you're a foreigner in their country, even though it is a foreign country and it's as far away as you can get from the UK. It feels so close.
Yeah, it was so nice being somewhere and not really having to adjust how you speak. Even jokes and banter was very similar. That to me was a big factor when we were there over the USA, when sometimes I make a joke here and people just don't get it.
I don't get it.
Yeah, neither do you.
I think we have very self-deprecating views on certain things. And we also, although we do encourage each other, we don't do it to the extreme that Americans do. They have a very positive lens on life, Americans. Sometimes
I will say something and they think, are you being serious? And they just don't get dry humour. And that was a thing in Australia throughout the whole period. I could talk how I normally would back home. I could say the things. And honestly, it just felt like being back home, but with better weather overall. Another great aspect that we saw about the lifestyle immediately in Australia was just how chill everyone was. Whether it be going out for coffee with their friends, meeting up after work, seeing people by the beach, going for walks. And this also led to something else that we noticed was just how active people generally were. I don't think we've been anywhere ever that has had people running, going for walks, doing exercises, in the parks, by the beach. And we have places like that in Australia if you think about LA, and that's
in America, you mean?
In America, yeah. But the only place that I can think of that really has that is LA, whereas it was such a nice thing to see as part of just the lifestyle of Australia.
I would say the US in general is not particularly fit, even though there will be more fit people as a whole number. If you just go around places that people visit like Orlando or LA or San Francisco, you don't see that as part of their lifestyle. You see some fit people doing fit things. It just seemed like everybody in Australia was fit.
Yeah, I have a feeling that active wear is sold really well.
They've nailed the marketing to Australians. It is like 80% of the people wear active wear.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they'd go to work in it as well.
Probably. So that's a huge part of the appeal for me as a lifestyle, and really why we probably should have considered it beforehand.
Definitely. And that leads to another aspect that I think, the lifestyle, and I don't know if it's that outdoorsy lifestyle, the fact that you have a community of people that are keeping active and fit, also seemingly led to people that looked less stressed, but also that work-life balance seemed a lot better in Australia, over the UK, but certainly over the USA too.
It's definitely noticeable being around people, talking to people in Australia. One of the things that stands out, both talking directly to people and having reviewed some of the comments. Selena's the person that reads through the comments. I do not.
It's been responding, by the way.
The fact that people are so defensive of where they're from in Australia kind of shows how good of a place it is to be, because you even don't get that in the US. Some people defend the US. A lot of people are like, we've got too many problems. There's too many problems here. And they might not beat America up, but they are very aware that, no, you're probably right, the other place is probably better than
It's a lot more mixed here.
Yeah.
If we give a review, you'll get the ones that are very patriotic, love their country, will defend their state and city. But there's also others that will be like, no, it's terrible, I can't stand living here anymore, we need to leave. Whereas it was overwhelming, the comments we got over our last few videos on just how proud you all are.
Yeah, we take it as a massive positive, because okay, there's people arguing back and forth over the differences of Melbourne versus Sydney, and some people feel like Melbourne is the up and coming city, the younger brother that's got to take out Sydney.
The most livable city. Remember, you've got to say the right thing.
Depends on who you are. But just that alone shows you the fact that you're fighting to say that your city is the best means a lot. What you're paying taxes for, your work, your amenities really means a lot to the people there, that they love it so much that they can't see another city possibly be better than where they are. So that is a very noticeable difference over the UK. Most people in the UK, I don't speak to a single person that likes the UK anymore. Very refreshing to see that from a nation. I know a nation is Melbourne and Sydney here, but it's very refreshing to see that.
What was evident to me is that there's almost this, and I described it to Anne as this baseline of how great Australia is to live in, whether it be the people, the food, the scenery, and it's a baseline. So what I noticed from the comments is that you do have the ability to pick the right city based on what you like. So whether that's Melbourne or Sydney, living in Hobart, Adelaide, Perth,
Brisbane,
you can almost tweak it. And that was what was so great, because okay, if you don't like the humidity, you go somewhere else that doesn't have the humidity. If you want great beaches, you might pick Perth. I'm expecting a lot of comments on that one.
Oh no.
But essentially, that is what's so great, that you can have this minimum lifestyle, but then tweak it to the city that really aligns to how you want to live.
I think that shows that there's actually less need to be super ambitious. And this doesn't mean that people in Australia are not ambitious. They are. They have huge industry. You can see how the buildings, the culture, the food places, huge amounts of ambition there. But it means for the people that may be less ambitious can still have a unbelievably good, fulfilling life. I wouldn't say the same is true for the UK or in particular the US. You need to have lots of luck and lots of ambition and drive to be very successful and hopefully happy in the US. I think somebody made the comment on one of our videos where it's super accurate. The US basically has no floor and no ceiling. You can live in poverty en masse and you can exceed the wealth of nations as an individual. So there is no floor and there is no ceiling. People look at the US in the wrong way because you look at it from the lens of the place that you come from. You think that it should be a certain way, but I don't think that is the ethos of the US. Whereas Australia seems to be, let's look after everybody because it's pretty good here anyway. That seems to be how they see stuff.
I think that is how we would sum it up. And I do think it is an overall better place for everyone.
The next topic is safety. And I think everybody can guess, maybe not some Americans, but Australia overall is a safe place. Not only statistically is it significantly safer than the US, it feels safer. It feels much more organized. It feels like there will be less chaos that could potentially happen at any point. And I think just the order and the cleanliness just makes you feel different to parts of the US. You can still go to places in the US that feels like it's 60 years in the past and you don't know the environment that you're walking into. In Australia, okay, we haven't traveled around extensively, but at least the places we did, it didn't feel like you could really go off the beaten path and have some event sprung on you.
No, and obviously the viewers watching can correct us if we're wrong. I think the safety factor is a huge reason for anyone to consider Australia over America. I think that has such an impact on how you feel day to day, and
particularly if you have children.
And especially if you have children, major reason. And we never, at no point during our trip in Australia did I feel unsafe. In America, when I go to places that I don't know, it's always there in the back of my mind. And it is worse than the UK. And I think from what I know, Australia is also safer than the UK.
All three places have had some quite significant events within the past couple of weeks, but that's the world. It's not 100% safe anywhere.
Nowhere's perfect.
Every place that we went to had an extensive public transport network. Now, they're not all carbon copies. I don't think in Sydney it had trams.
No.
But it had the boats.
Yeah, I love the commuter ferries. It was one of the highlights of my trip.
There's something that each place seems to have that provides an extensive network for people to get around fairly cheaply and easily. I think the only place we've been in the US that has a good transport system is New York City.
I think so, Manhattan.
Manhattan,
distinctly Manhattan. So in the US, you can, if you want to live somewhere without a car, that you have to be very specific as to where you live and probably are going to pay a high premium for that privilege.
As an example, not just Manhattan, but if you live in San Francisco proper, they do have trams and it's really easy to get around. But you'll be paying 3, 4, 5 million or more for the same home that we have. So then it's not really a cheap way.
No.
Because you've got great transport, but you can't afford your home. So that's how the US balances. Whereas at least in Melbourne, which is significantly cheaper than Sydney, it had one of the best transport systems I've used.
I think also what I really liked about Melbourne was their CBD area having it free to use.
It's not specific about transport, but I can definitely see how Australians don't necessarily mind how much they get taxed. Having been there for 2 weeks, you can see where the tax money goes. It's quite obvious that your money's going into a pot and you're getting something back. Good education, good transport, clean streets, some social care for people. I know it's changing. I've been told it's changing slightly, but it is there. You can't necessarily see that in the UK anymore. You definitely can't see it here.
And it's interesting. I don't think there's many people in the UK that would, not that we don't have good public transport, we do, but most people will say that we're paying extensively to use that public transport.
Yeah, because you pay for it in your taxes and then you pay for it again at a very high rate to use the buses and particularly the trains.
Yeah, high-speed trains.
Yeah.
So I feel that in Australia there's more of a concerted effort to make it a reasonable price to use the public transport.
On to food. Food in Australia is great, all round. It's got loads of variety, the quality is really high, people seem to care about the food they're serving you, the produce, where it comes from. I had the best time in terms of food. I don't know really how to compare it exactly to the US because it depends on where you are. I'm sure Manhattan is so significantly more different to Las Vegas as it would be to Orlando, Chicago.
And it could also depend on where you live rurally in America, how you source your meat and vegetables. But one of the biggest factors for me when moving from the UK was I'm always checking the labels now of
Here in Vegas.
I don't really trust the quality of food, the stuff they pump into meats.
Yeah.
Even tomato ketchup, Heinz is a completely different ketchup here. That is something I really do miss about the quality of food in the UK. But having gone to Australia, you have no issues.
Probably if you compared it to the top cities in the US, you weren't just specific about the best places. I think Australia has better food. Coffee. Selena just said to me off camera, we would not be doing Australia justice if we didn't give coffee its own category. People would have heard it in our last video and think, why do they keep going on about this? It's so good. It's good everywhere.
Perfected it. And it was funny because on the way to Australia, everyone kept saying, oh, you're going to love coffee in Melbourne. So we had it in our head that maybe it's just a Melbourne thing. But actually, I had great coffee in Tassie, in hospitals in the UK. You would never get a decent cup of coffee in a hospital.
We have the machine, what are they called, click cups or something.
Yes, the vending machine thing. Oh yeah. And in America, getting a decent cup of coffee is just not possible.
It goes to show though, the one thing the US is a marketing machine. It's a commercial machine that will just smash everything in its way because the big brand is Starbucks. It exists everywhere.
Yeah,
potentially the worst coffee of all of them. People complain about Costa in the UK, but Costa's a lot better than...
Americans love Starbucks.
Yeah, but Americans don't understand coffee. No, they don't. Caveat to that, Selena's manager has a friend in Tampa and you just got a sample pack of the coffee and actually it's very good. But this is the bean. We're grinding it at home and making our own coffee, but that is very good coffee. We tried other coffee beans and it's just, I don't know what they do. They go somewhere, they go, looks like coffee, burn it and send it to people. It's so bad. Australia has perfected it in nearly every spot that you can go to.
And we will go as far as to say that it is the best coffee consistently anywhere in the world that we've had.
We know it's going to kick off an argument somehow.
So those are the main reasons we would say to pick Australia over America. Now, some of you are watching this video and probably thinking, because I'm imagining the comments now, why did we not include healthcare? So, Ant, why did we not include healthcare?
It's such a big topic. It's not just a big topic. People like to create a story that fits the narrative that best serves them. And within that, different narratives really do best serve certain types of people. Yeah. Meaning, it depends on your income, it depends on where you're at in life, it depends on your family. We are just a couple, we have no children. So our outlook on healthcare, and we're very healthy up until now, is very different to a family of 4, 5, 6, who knows, or a family that may have pre-existing current healthcare conditions. It's really hard to measure. An example would be, my old director just recently landed in Orlando, or close to Orlando, and his daughter had an ear infection. He went to the hospital, paid his $189, got seen immediately, has not been able to get an appointment at home for weeks. Well, that's a problem. And specifically for somebody that can afford to pay out of pocket, he would prefer to have his child seen. So you might argue, well, the NHS is free for everybody, but it depends on your perspective. Maybe you want your kids seen immediately and not have to fight for it. People like us, we've come to the US and we pay probably about 1/3 of what we were paying into the NHS as a payment to our healthcare provider here. So I think we pay $228, give or take, per month for 2 of us, with an absolute maximum cap of $11,000 per year, no matter what happens. Both of us could get run over tomorrow. Every bone has to be repaired, every organ replaced. It'll cost us $11,000 in total. Our contribution to the NHS was about £14,000 per year. So give or take $18,000, $19,000, $20,000.
Yeah, and I know it's so hard for people to accept this because there were a lot of comments referencing, well, I hope nothing really bad happens to you. Enjoy your healthcare. We are enjoying our healthcare. Thank you very much.
It's been fantastic, honestly.
We get seen on time. We get seen quickly. I've had ailments that have been resolved here that were never resolved in the NHS. The only thing we're not doing in this video is saying it is better than Australia, or Australia's healthcare is better than America, because we do not know.
I said this in the previous video. There's so much we don't know even about the US system. We've only been here 3 years. We're learning as we go along, and we can only tell you what we are experiencing. So if someone says, well, this situation happened to me 20 years ago in the US, I believe you. But that's not our experience. I can only talk about our experience in the UK, which was terrible in terms of our healthcare, and it's been much better here and cheaper. We certainly don't know about the Australian healthcare. Although you work in healthcare, you only work in it from the commercial part as a company supplying into it. We can't talk on that. And if people have different opinions from experience, we'll listen.
Please, I'm sure you will.
Yeah, we're not trying to tell anybody they're wrong or they're right. Everybody has their own experiences with healthcare. All we can say is we've come from the UK to the US. It has been cheaper and not just significant, infinitely better here for us in our situation. Another family might move over, move to wherever, a different state, a different location, and have a terrible time. Either because it's really expensive, or maybe their local doctors and hospitals aren't great, maybe. But we can't really talk on that because we're not putting ourselves in 7.5 billion people's position.
And Australia may well have a better healthcare system than America. We're just not pointing it out because we don't know. So there you have it. I think lots of great reasons why you should consider Australia over America. We are going to do another video on why you should pick America over Australia. Thanks for watching.